What's up, guys? So, I am going to put together today a little top 10 power rankings since we are now at the midseason point. I feel it's a appropriate time to actually start trying to stack these teams and see who's who. So, I'm going to run through my top 10 and give you a little bit of a reasoning for each one, and hope you enjoy. So, at the top spot, any other week this year, I would have had the Patriots at the top spot. But I mean, I'm just the way I'm looking at it now. How much longer can we deny San Francisco? I know New Orleans has been impressive. The Vikings and Packers have been impressive. The Patriots defense is historically great already, at least through half a season. But this 49ers defense is vicious. I mean, they have a bunch of first-round picks up front. They can rotate their whole defensive front. Their linebackers can fly to the ball. The secondary is pretty damn good. They play fast. Their head coach has them motivated. Offensively, they run the ball. And unlike New England, who's still averaging below 4 yards a carry on the season, even though New England does commit to the run, the 49ers can run the ball. They had only had 2 runs of 20-plus yards coming into the game against the Panthers this past week, but they ended up with 4, maybe even 5 such runs in that game. So Tevin Coleman is healthy again, clearly. He went crazy. Somebody I was really high on pre-season as far as fantasy goes, and I think we're all starting to see why I was so high on him. But when I look at the 49ers and I think, what's their weakness, right? The passing game, of course. Okay, like Jimmy Garoppolo's good. Is he elite? Can't call him elite just yet, but the thing that really sticks out to me is they're doing this with 2 backup offensive tackles. I mean, maybe even third string guys. Like, what they're doing, and Jimmy's only passing the ball 18, 25 times a game, stuff like that, and they're pounding it second most of anybody in the NFL other than the Ravens. So they can come at you with a variety of different running backs that all have enough wiggle in them to make you miss. Coleman has a little bit more pop to him as well as that wiggle and speed. The scheme and the way that the diversity of the run game where they can get to the edge against anybody and they can pound you up the middle. Like the Panthers were so dead set at about halfway through that game, they were so dead set on keeping containment and getting to the edge, they just got gashed on a couple of runs right up the middle. Shanahan's ability to dictate to the defense is really special. He's in a real groove right now as a play caller. He's maximizing his players' skill sets with backup offensive linemen. He's doing one hell of a job, and that defense is just ridiculous. So right now, being one of 2 unbeaten teams, I have to have the 49ers at the top spot. Okay, moving on to the number 2 spots, the Patriots, of course. And New England is obviously that defense on a historical pace, but the only reason I bumped them down to 2 is because they have clear weaknesses. And one of those weaknesses is the offensive line. Another one of those weaknesses is the skill position players. I mean, they're better now with the Sanu trade, but I'm a little concerned. Not much. I still pick them to go to the Super Bowl if I had to choose right now. And if the 49ers and Patriots were to play each other, that'd be a very tough decision. But point is, I can't justify putting them at the top spot because of their offensive line. You know, I mean, Marshall Newhouse at left tackles that could end up biting you in the butt, even with Belichick, McDaniels, Brady, and Dante Scarnecchia on your team. So just because of that and the fact that it's not only is the offensive line an issue in pass protection, but it's an issue in running the football. Like the Patriots, even though they've attempted close to top 5 most rush attempts, they're still averaging under 4 yards a carry on the season, and that is an issue. I love that they're committing to the run, but you know, if you struggle to run the ball and you struggle to pass protect in a game where game flow works against you, that that could get rough. I mean, against an elite defense and a team that doesn't make mistakes and a team that can run the ball, I could see the Patriots struggling. And this week's game against the Ravens will really be interesting because I think the Ravens are going to run the ball 40 times, so at least. And I've been on record saying that for 2 weeks now. All right, number 3 teams, the Saints. Drew Brees is back. They have over 500 yards of offense, and they cruised past what was a pretty hot Arizona Cardinals team that had won 3 straight games. The Saints are similar to the 49ers in the sense that they don't have a clear weakness. The defense is playing out of their minds right now. The offensive line is very good. Drew Brees is still Drew Brees. They can run the ball, and they're doing it with Latavius Murray now, even without Kamara for the last 2 games. Murray's had over 100 yards in each game. They did it without Drew Brees for several weeks. There's a real legitimate case to put them at number 1 even in these power rankings, but they lost a game, and you could say, well, they didn't have Brees in that game, and that's true, but they then went and won, 4 straight without Brees. So I just can't justify putting them above the 49ers or Patriots because they've lost a game, just that simple. But they're an elite team, and they are an absolutely Super Bowl contender. Number 4, it's going to be probably to the surprise of some, but I have the Minnesota Vikings at 4. Reason being, the way that I look at successful football teams is defense first. Vikings have that. Can you run the football on offense? Yes, the Vikings have proven that Dalvin Cook is a better running back than we even all thought, even his biggest fans thought. He's probably a top 2 or 3 back in the league, at least, if not the best. I talk about this with one of my followers on Instagram a lot, and his name is Braden, and Braden often calls Dalvin the best pure runner in the NFL, and I would agree with that statement as far as just, take away the receiving aspect of running backs games, who's the best runner. Yeah, it's tough to argue that's not Dalvin. So the Vikings have an elite defense. Their offensive line is run blocking really well, and they have one of the best running backs in the NFL. Kirk Cousins over the last 4 weeks has been looking phenomenal, and it's amazing what a run game does. Now his numbers aren't just flashy passing statistics with no substance behind them. Because of the running game, they're actual real numbers that are leading to wins. So the Vikings are 6-2, and the reason I put them above the Packers, I know people are going to give me shit about that, but the reason I did it is because I just like their formula a little bit more. And when they played the Packers in Lambeau, they were down 21-0 in that game after 1 quarter. That at that point, they shut the Packers out and should have won the game if not for one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my life by Kirk Cousins in the late 4th quarter that iced it. So I think they outplayed the Packers for 3 quarters head-to-head, and I know they lost, but I just, right now, if you put them on a neutral field and say who wins, I'm taking the Vikings. So number 5 is obviously the Packers, Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is a complete team. Green Bay is a Super Bowl contending team. Green Bay has a very, very good defense, even though Kansas City was able to do a little bit more damage to them than I expected, considering Mahomes was out. But I'll just chalk that up as Andy Reid being Andy Reid. Overall, the Packers have a really impressive body of work. There's 2 things that worry me about the Packers and why I don't have them a little bit higher, or at least why I don't have them at 4. Number 1 is the run defense. The run defense has at times looked very exploitable. So if you've been following me, I preach stop the run and run the ball. The Packers can do the other things that I preach, right, which is run the ball, rush the passer, all that kind of stuff. But their run defense at times has been very leaky. So that is one concern. The other concern is the fact that Aaron Rodgers the last 2 weeks has been amazing, right? I mean, he's looked like Aaron Rodgers the last 2 weeks. But let's not forget the previous 6 games this season, he only had a total of 7 touchdowns. And yes, they were winning. I get that, but that still is a little bit alarming. Now, he's went crazy the last 2 weeks, and had like that 7 touchdown game or 6 touchdown game against Oakland, and then a big game against the Chiefs. But I want to see him string it together consistently, which I'm not really worried about. I think he's going to play better than he did those first 6 games from here on out. But I definitely want to see the run defense improve a little bit. If I can get that from Green Bay, they will be they'll be up in these power rankings. I don't know when I'll do them again, but they'll be up there even further because they are clearly a dangerous team and they can beat anybody on any given game. So Packers at 5. Number 6. This might be to the surprise of some, but I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. They're sort of like the Vikings of the AFC, but they don't have that elite running back per se. Marlon Mack is good, very good, and but their offensive line is phenomenal. Their quarterback is playing really, really well. Their receivers are solid. They just don't have a weakness, and their defense is playing out of their minds. Other than a bad loss to the Raiders, the Colts would be they'd have a really impressive resume right now. They went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs with Mahomes. They actually were responsible for Mahomes' arguably worst game of his career just a few weeks ago. So, yeah, Colts at 6, I think, is... I kept kind of moving them up throughout this process because every time I had someone above them, I'm like, I can't do that. So I kind of had to keep moving them up just because of their overall body of work. They're just a solid team, very well coached, very few, if any, true weaknesses. The Colts are a dangerous team. And again, they're tried and true. They play great defense, they have a great offensive line, and they run the hell out of the ball. So, Colts at 6. Number 7, I'll still roll with the Chiefs here. I have been saying for weeks, I think the Chiefs' defense is better than we're giving them credit for. And I think that because when they played the Colts, I can't remember the exact time of possession discrepancy of the second half, but in the second half, they still held the Colts to under 4 yards a carry, which to me is phenomenal considering they were down Chris Jones and Frank Clark, and the Colts were just pounding the rock consistently. And they should have been tired. They should have allowed a big run. They didn't, and they really fought hard. And they even stopped them on a 4th and 1 and a 3rd and 1 late in that game to give them even a chance. So I think their defense is better than we're giving them credit for. I know Mahomes struggled a little bit over his last 2 or 3 games before the injury or, before getting knocked out against Denver, but I still think Mahomes is a top 2 to maybe 3 quarterback in the NFL easily. Probably the best, honestly, but overall, with Andy Reid calling the plays, with the amount of skill position guys they have on offense, and what I believe to be an underrated defense, I think the Chiefs are a very, very dangerous team. Hopefully Mahomes can come back soon, and they will likely climb higher up in these rankings. But for now, they're at number 7. Number 8 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sorry, but that win against Seattle, where it wasn't a comeback win necessarily, but it felt like a comeback win because up until that Marcus Peters interception for a touchdown, it was like it kind of felt like a Seattle was really imposing their will. And then all of a sudden it wasn't, and it felt like the Ravens were really imposing their will, something that you don't see happen to Seattle in Seattle with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll over there. So they really, that was just a dominant performance. Lamar showed up big in a big game and really took that game over for stretches of that second half there. They play good defense. This is another underrated defense. Lamar is like top 10 in rushing yards in the NFL as a quarterback. And oh, by the way, he's playing quarterback very well too. So I just think that there's in any game, any scenario, the Ravens could beat anyone. I'm not going to put them number 1, but they can beat anybody in any game, any given Sunday. So Ravens are number 8. And now number 9, Seattle. Again, a team that runs the hell out of the ball. They have an elite quarterback. The defense is slightly holding them back, but the defense, what they do well is they do make plays when they need to make plays, as we saw in the Rams game and just pretty much all their game against the Browns. the Seahawks they have a tried and true formula in the sense that they run the ball. They're decent against the run. I think they're better against the run than whatever their stats may indicate. Just their one fatal flaw is that offensive line as far as from a pass blocking standpoint, and the defense can be leaky at times, but it's a young defense, and I expect them to get better as the season goes on. But yeah, so Seattle's at 9. I feel that's the appropriate spot for them. I had some they did some shifting in my in my makings of these power rankings as well, but I think Seattle's a really good team, and I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're right on the cusp. They're just that good. So with Russell and their coach, I think Pete Carroll's still underrated as a football coach. So Seattle's at 9. My number 10 team actually lost this weekend, but I'm still high on them. The Buffalo Bills. Their defense is elite. They had a bad game. That happens. They played a really good offensive line, and the Eagles committed to the run. The Eagles are that team where if I was making a weekly power rankings, which I kind of think are silly, but if I was, the Eagles would be the most variance of any team, I think, because they have their nights where they go into Lambeau Field and beat up on the Packers and just out-physical them. And then they have their nights where they get stomped on by Dallas or whatever. They're a weird team to figure out. So I'm not going to drop the Bills too much for losing that game to Philly. And I'm definitely not putting Philly above them as a complete football team because through 8 games, we have seen 7 games through Buffalo. We've seen a body of work that I feel I can trust with Buffalo. An offense that runs the ball, commits to the run, a quarterback that can get you 2, 3, 4 first downs every week with his legs, and a dominant defense. So that is going to wrap it up for my top 10 team power rankings for midseason. Let me know down in the comments what you agree with, don't agree with, and I will respond, and we'll have it out. So let me know, guys. Appreciate you for listening. Thanks.